So from the gross annual value, you will get the deduction of the municipal taxes. But what is the condition for the deduction of municipal taxes? The municipal taxes must be paid by the owner. Then only the deduction is available. Otherwise, reduction is not available. So the basic condition, municipal taxes must be paid, and the second, it should be paid by the owner. There could be a question, what is mean by the municipal taxes? Municipal tax means any tax levied by the municipality. It could be in the name of water tax, it could be in the name of sewerage tax, or any other tax levied by the municipal corporation. That would be allowed as deduction from your gross annual, provided that it has been paid by the owner. Correct. The next second condition, if the property is situated outside India, then what? If the property is situated outside India, the municipal taxes paid outside India also would be allowed as a deduction. Next, if it has been paid in advance for the next year, then deduction won't be available. But if it has been paid for the preceding previous years, correct, then deduction would be available. There could be in a case, for an example, you had been paid a municipal taxes for the last 4 years in this year, so the amount would be on a higher side. It could be more than your gross annual value, correct? So the deduction is available, yes. And if it has been in the municipal taxes for the any preceding of year, if it has been paid in a current year by the owner, then deduction would be available. Then in that case, the NAV could be negative. That could be a fine option. The municipal tax amount can be higher than the GAV. The NAV would be negative. So we'll do the question on this part. Basically in municipal taxes are two simple things to remember. The first, it should be paid by the owner, and the second, it should be for the previous year or preceding previous year. It should not be for the next year. Okay, done with. Next, the question on this part. What has been given? What is the question? Illustration 9 says that compute the net annual value with the following for the assessment year 2021. Correct. So 2021 means this is for the previous year. This is for the previous year 1920. Correct. Now there are 6 houses. Detail has been given to you. All the houses has been situated at a different cities. That hardly matters for you. Matters to you. Next, what has been given? The municipal value. Next has been given a gross annual value has been given. Correct. How get a net annual value? From the gross annual value, you deduct the municipal taxes paid figure. You will get the net annual value. Correct. But the municipal taxes deduction would be available if you satisfy the two conditions. Basically, the first, it should be paid by the owner, and second, it should be for the previous year preceding to the previous year. It should not be for the next year. So for the previous year. Next, the sewerage tax and the water tax. These are the taxes levied by the municipal corporation. So all would be allowed as a deduction from the gross annual value. Additional information has been given for the house 3, house 4 and house 6. For house 1, house 2 and house 5, there is no additional information available. So I'll start with the house 1. I want to calculate the net annual value of the house 1. So that was in a question to calculate. How to calculate? The gross annual value less the municipal taxes. Now the question arises whether this 5,000 would be allowed as deduction. It has not been told it has been paid or not. So I will assume it out in a note it has been paid during the previous year by the owner. Hence the reduction would be allowed. So I will reducing 5,000 from the 1 lakh. So the net annual value become a 95,000. Next, for the house 2, the gross annual value is 2,50,000. The municipal tax, sewerage tax 1053. So in total it is an 18%. That 18% of what? Generally the municipal taxes are always of a percentage of the municipal value. Correct. So the municipal value had been given a 2 lakh. 2 lakh 18% would be allowed as deduction, assuming that it has been paid by the owner. So we'll write down into the notes ki yes, it has been paid by the owner during the previous year. His deduction has been allowed. So in this case 18%, so 2 lakh 18% comes to 36,000. So 36,000 would be allowed as deduction from the 2,50,000. So 2,14,000 would be your NAV. Next, house 3, the gross annual value is 1,80,000. The municipal taxes is a 5%. Water tax is 5% and the sewerage tax amount has been given. But there is an additional information for the house 3. For the house 3, the municipal taxes has been paid from 93 to 1819. Your previous year is a 1920 and they had paid municipal taxes for the preceding years. Correct? Kitna amount pay kiya hai? 2 lakh. What about the current year? Nothing has been told. Again we'll have to assume that nothing has been given, so we'll assume it out कि it has been paid 18%, sorry, this 10% plus 1000 rupees and plus 2 lakh, all would be allowed as a deduction. Note में assuming the current year municipal taxes has been paid by the owner and this 2 lakh is a preceding year, it has been paid during the previous, तो उसका तो deduction मिल ही जाएगा. So ultimately कितना amount का deduction मिलेगा? 30,000 plus 1,000, 31,000 plus 2 lakh. So 2 lakh 31,000 would be allowed as a deduction. So NAV would be negative in this case because the gross annual value is 1,80,000 and the municipal taxes deduction is a 2,31,000. Correct? So you'll get the NAV negative. I told you that the municipal taxes amount could be higher than the GAO. It could be. Next, for the house 4, what has been given? The gross municipal value is a 5 lakh and the municipal taxes, sewerage tax and the water tax 20, 33 and 2. Matlab ultimately it comes to the 25% of the municipal value. And municipal value is 4 lakh. So 25% of the municipal value it comes to 1 lakh. What is an additional information has been given for the house 4? The municipal tax for the financial year 2021. We are in the financial year 1920 and the municipal tax for the next year has been paid during the year. Whether the deduction would be available? No. Correct? The municipal tax cannot be allowed as a deduction if it has been paid for the next year. So this only the 25% means that 1 lakh would be allowed as deduction. So your NAV would become a 4 lakh. Next, house 5 symbol that can be considered as a homework. House 6, the municipal value is 6 lakh. The gross annual value is 5 lakh. The municipal tax is at 10%, means it comes to 60,000. Next, sewerage tax, assuming that it has been paid. But there is an additional information has been given. In the case of house 6, all the taxes charged by the municipality are paid to extent of 80%. Pura pay kiya hai kya? Nahi. No assumption is required. They already says that only how much is how much amount has been paid. Only the 80% has been paid. Okay. For the 50% is paid by the owner and 30% is paid by the tenant. Correct. So how much is paid by the owner, that would be allowed as a deduction. So the 30,000 and this is a 500 would be allowed as deduction. So total deduction would be 30,500 from your gross value, gross annual value of the 5 lakh. So you'll get the net annual value as a 4,69,000. Hopefully clear with it. Chalo. Next available. Next, from the net annual value, there are 2 more deductions are possible. The first, standard deduction at the rate of 30% under section 24A, and next is the interest on borrowed capital under section 24B. Correct. So the standard deduction is available for what? Irrespective of your actual expenditure on a house property. For an example, the repair, insurance, or any other expenditure that you had done on a house property won't be allowed as deduction. Straight away they are allowing you 30% as standard deduction. Kiska 30%? NAV ka 30% would be allowed as a deduction. Now the next question arises, if the NAV is a negative, तो क्या होगा? No deduction could be possible. If NAV is a nil or negative, no deduction could be possible. No standard deduction could be possible if the NAV is negative or the NAV is nil. Next, interest on borrowed capital that is allowed as deduction under section 24B. What is the purpose of the borrowed capital? Second, the purpose of the borrowed capital could be repair, maintenance, repair, construction or the purchase. Correct. And the next important, it is not that it must be paid. Even it is not paid, still the deduction is available. For the municipal taxes, the condition was it must be paid. But for the interest, it is not in a condition that it should be paid. Even it has not been paid, accrued, unpaid amount of the interest is also allowed as a deduction. We'll further discuss on the interest part. So the interest is allowed as deduction. I told you that. First of all, the interest on borrowed capital is allowed as a deduction, no doubt. Under section 24B, we had seen the chargeability section 22, correct? And from under section 24, A is a standard deduction and B talks about the interest on borrowed capital. So what it says that there are 2 types of interest. Ek the pre-construction and there is a second is a post-construction. I will come to the pre-construction later on. So what should be the purpose of the loan? The loan should be purpose or the borrowed capital has been a purpose of PCR, 5R. What is mean by P? Purchase. C stand for the construction. 5R stand for repair, renovation, repayment of the old loan, renewal of the old loan, correct? And the reconstruction. The purpose of the loan should be out of this only. Then the interest on the such borrowed capital would be allowed as deduction. If the purpose of the loan is for the payment of the municipal taxes, लोन क्यों लिया? म्यूनिसिपल टैक्स पे करने के लिए. Then such interest on such borrowed capital won't be allowed as a deduction. You had not paid the interest, correct, for the last 5 years. To repay the interest, you had taken a one loan. Okay, that new loan के ऊपर का interest won't be allowed as a deduction because the purpose of loan is to repay the interest. Have you clear? What should be the purpose of the loan? PCR5. What is a P? Purchase. C stand for the construction. R stand for there are 5 R's. The first one in that is repair, renovation, reconstruction, renewal and the repayment of the old loan. Correct. If the purpose of the loan is any of this 5, then only the deduction is available, otherwise not. The next, the interest is allowed on deduction on the accrual basis. I already told you that. Even it is unpaid, still the deduction is available. The municipal taxes need to be paid, but interest on borrowed capital need not to be paid. Even it is unpaid, still the deduction is available. The next, interest is allowed from the year in which the property construction has been completed. मतलब जब तक property under construction है, तब तक it's not on a house property, so you won't get a deduction under section 24B. You will get a deduction from the financial year from which, or from the previous year from which the property is completed. Construction has been completed. Clear with it? Now the next, what is mean by pre-construction period? Correct. You have taken a loan, the construction has been started. Correct. So obviously there will be an accrued interest on that, but the deduction won't be available because the 24B says कब deduction मिलेगा? जब property ready होगी तब. So under construction interest का क्या होगा? Yeah, you do accumulate the under construction period interest that would be allowed as deduction in a 5 equal installment after the construction. So under construction period का जो भी interest है, make an cumulative amount of that time the deduction is not available. When you will get a deduction after the property is got complete, whole pre-construction period interest would be allowed as a deduction in a 5 equal installment after the construction has been completed. Now the next question arises, what is mean by pre-construction period? It's very simple, from the date of the construction or the date of the loan, whichever is later. मतलब आपने लोन पहले लिया, कंस्ट्रक्शन चालू नहीं हुआ, तो एचपी में इंटरेस्ट अलाउड होगा? नहीं, एचपीयू उसको प्री कंस्ट्रक्शन पीरियड नहीं मानती. कहाँ से? फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ द लोन और द डेट ऑफ द कंस्ट्रक्शन, date of the starting of a construction, whichever is later, that is to be considered the start date for the pre-construction period interest. What is the end date? The year in which construction is completed, वो पूरा year post, correct? So year preceding to that, correct, up to end of that year only, it could be considered as a pre-construction. I would give an example. The construction has been completed on the 1st of December 2019. So 1920 पूरा post, correct? So 1920 के preceding year कौन सा था? 1819. End of that year was on 31st of March 2000, correct? 2019. So up to 2019 the pre-construction period end on. Construction खत्म 1 दिसंबर 2019 को हुआ, but pre-construction period end कब हो जाता है? 31st of March 2019 itself. Have you clear with it? So the year in which construction is completed is always to be considered as a post-construction year. Post-construction माना जाएगा. उससे पहले वाले years is to be called as a pre-construction. We'll have an example on the both of this, so you'll understand better. So the first, what they had asked you, following information has been provided. Illustration 10. For his house property, compute the interest to be allowed under section 24, then small b. There are 5 house property has been given, and in particular, it talks about all about the interest. The first, interest on loan taken. What is in the purpose of that? For the repair of the house property. PCR, all 5 R's में repair comes out, correct? So this would be allowed as a deduction. Next, interest on a loan taken for the purchasing on house property, 50% has been paid. मतलब 50% unpaid है. Whether interest need to be paid? No. The municipal taxes need to be paid. Interest, even it is an unpaid amount, still the deduction would be available. Correct? Next, interest on a new loan taken for the repaying old loan. PCR 5 में repayment of the old loan comes it out. Correct. Old loan का purpose क्या था? For the purpose of house property. Correct. Then deduction would be available. Next, interest on loan taken for the payment of the interest of the earlier loan. What is the purpose of loan? For the repayment of the interest. Whether it come under the PCR, 5R, no. So this won't be available as a deduction. Interest on loan for the payment of the municipal tax, again no. What should be the purpose of the loan? PCR, purchase, construction, repair, renovation, reconstruction, repair, repayment of the old loan or the renewal. So it does not fit into it. Interest on loan taken for mortgaging a house property for the business purpose. What is the purpose? Business purpose. PCR 5 में आता है? No. So this is again not allowed as deduction under the HP. This should be allowed as deduction under the PGBP. Next, interest on loan for the reconstruction of the house property 1 paid outside India without the TDS. This point that we covering next slide. If the interest has been paid outside India without deduction of the TDS, that the deduction could not be possible. Correct? अगर आप outside India pay कर रहे हो, you should deduct the TDS, then only deduction could be possible. So this both point TDS has not been deducted, so it won't be allowed under section 25. Next, interest on loan on the mortgage of a HP1 for the renovation of the house property 2. What is the purpose of the loan? Renovation of the house property 2. Correct? Mortgage house property 1 को किया. Correct? लेकिन renovation किसका कर रहे हो? HP2 का. Renovation come under the 5R? Yes. So deduction would be available, but not against the house 1. It would be against the house 2. Are you clear with it? Good. Next. Pre-construction period. It is question on that part. What is the pre-construction period interest? Correct. The pre-construction period interest start from the date of the loan or the date of the commencement of the construction, whichever is later. Correct. And it ends on the year in which construction is completed, that is to be considered as a post-construction. Year preceding to that is to be considered as a pre-construction. So we'll read out the question. Calculate the interest on a loan allowed for the assessment year 15-16 to 2021. Assessment year. Correct. So we'll write down the previous year. So कौन से year के लिए interest निकालने को बोला है? It's 14-15 to 19-20. I am more comfortable with the previous year. So आपको कौन से previous year के लिए deduction निकालने को बोला है? 14-15 से लेके up to the 19-20, how much interest would be allowed as a deduction? From the following information, the loan was taken on the 1st of Jan 2011. Loan का amount कितना है? 5 lakh. And the rate of the interest is a 12%. The second, construction has been commenced on the 1st of August 2011. Okay. So pre-construction period interest start from what? The date of the loan or the date of the construction, whichever is later. So in our case, it starts from 1st August 2011. And it ends on, the construction has been completed on the 31st of March 2016. Correct? So 15-16, the year in which construction is completed, it is to be called as a post-construction period. So the 15-16 is to be called as a post-construction. So 14-15 up to 14-15, the 31st of March 2015 is to be called as a pre. The year in which construction is completed is to be called a full post. 31st मार्च 2016 एंड पे खत्म हुआ, लेकिन पूरा 15-16 क्या माना जाएगा? पोस्ट. And just preceding to that would be the pre. Have you clear with it? So now the next one. The repayment also made as under 2012 में repayment है, correct? So 12-13 में basically there is a repayment, then 15-16 में repayment है, then 18-19 and the 19-20 में there is a repayment. What is the impact of the repayment? The principal outstanding में से उतना amount कम हो जाएगा for the calculation of interest. So now the question arises, first we do calculate the pre-construction period interest. Whatever the total of the pre-construction period interest, that is to be allowed as a deduction in the 5 equal installment beginning from the post-construction period. So pre-construction period is 11-12, 12-13, 13-14, correct? And 14-15. This is a 4 pre-construction period. These are the 4 years of the pre-construction. So 11-12 में how much amount of outstanding? That is a 5 lakh. whether any repayment? No. 12-13 mein there is a repayment of 1 lakh. So amount outstanding would become a 4 lakh. 13-14 there is no repayment. So 4 lakh. 14-15 में भी repayment नहीं है. Repayment कब है अभी? 15-16 में directly. So the amount outstanding would be 4 lakh only. The interest in 11-12 the construction had been started from the 1st August. So interest would start from the pre-construction period. Interest start from the 1st August. Correct. So August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So the interest for the 8 months. Correct. And the remaining all for the interest would be for the 12 months. So how much would be the interest amount? So 5 lakh. Interest rate is how much? 12%. And that is for the 8 months. And यहाँ तो simply it is for the year only. Correct. So how much is the amount of interest? It comes to 40,000, 48,000, 48,000 and the 48,000. So the total pre-construction period interest become a 48,000, 48,000, 48,000. So total become a 1,84,000. This interest would be allowed as a deduction in a post-construction period in the 5 equal installment. So each year how much deduction is available? So 184 divided by 5, it comes to 36,800. So this is a pre-construction period interest that would be allowed as deduction. From which year? 15-16. Each year you will get this amount as a deduction. Plus your post-construction as well. So 14-15 ये तो pre-construction है. Pre-construction period में no deduction could be possible because 24B specifically says that when the property is ready, from that year only the deduction is available. Correct. So 14-15 when the property was not ready, so the deduction won't be possible. The deduction is from the 15-16. In the question they'd ask what is the amount of interest be allowed as deduction for the 14-15. So 14-15 no deduction. 15-16 onward you will get it. So post-construction period interest. प्री तो फिक्स है 36,800. करेक्ट. पोस्ट कितना आएगा? रीपेमेंट है क्या 15-16 में? यस, दैट इज द रीपेमेंट ऑफ 1 लाख. सो द लोन आउटस्टैंडिंग बिकम अ 3 लाख. करेक्ट. ये 3 लाख के ऊपर एट द रेट ऑफ 12% फॉर एन ईयर, तो इंटरेस्ट कम्स टू 36,000. नेक्स्ट 16-17 देयर इज नो रीपेमेंट, सो द इंटरेस्ट पोस्ट कंस्ट्रक्शन पीरियड इंटरेस्ट वुड बी द सेम. इट्स नॉट टोटल, इट इज ओनली द पोस्ट एंड द प्री ऑफ 36,800. Next in 17-18 there is a repayment, there is no repayment, so the outstanding amount 18-19 में repayment है. Correct. So it will be 36,000 again plus 36,800 is a pre. It's in a post. Correct. And it is a pre. Total of this would become a pre-post total interest. Next 18-19 there is a repayment of 1 lakh. So the loan outstanding become a 2 lakh. So 2 lakh के ऊपर 12% for an year. So it comes to 24,000 plus 36,800. 5 equal installments. So the pre-construction period would be allowed up to the 19-20. Next there is a repayment, but the repayment is in a between of the year. कब repayment क्या? 1st July. So 1st July तक कितना outstanding था? 30 June तक. April, May, June. For the 3 months, how much is the amount outstanding? The amount outstanding is a 2 lakh. Correct. How much amount has been repaid? 1 lakh has been repaid. For the remaining 9 months, what is an amount outstanding? Correct. So 1 lakh is outstanding for the remaining 9 months. What is the interest rate? Per annum 12%. So per month it become 1%. So total interest for 19-20 post construction interest कितना होगा? 2 lakh का 1%. So it comes to, correct, 2,000. That is for the 3 months. So it comes to 6,000. And this is 9,000. So 6 plus 9, it comes to 15,000. So 15,000 plus 36,800. That much amount would be allowed as a deduction. Hopefully clear with it. This is 2 lakh is outstanding for the 3 months. Correct. And 1 lakh is outstanding for the 9 months. 1% कैसा? 12% per annum rate है. तो per month rate कितना हुआ? 1%. So this figure comes to 3,000 and this figure comes to, so this figure comes to 6,000 and this comes to 9,000. So total comes to 15,000. Clear with it? Next. Next in the HPs, there are different types of the house property. Which are the types of the house property? The first one, self-occupied property. The next one is a let out property. Then deemed let out property, and all that is being dealt by the section 20. Next, there are different types of the house property. In that, the first is a self-occupied property. So it should be self-occupied property, means it should be occupied by the owner throughout the year. That is in a basic need. Correct? It should not be let out. Correct. Second, self-occupied concept is only applicable for the individual and HF. This is not applicable for the company or the firm. Correct. So it should be throughoutly occupied by the owner. Second, it should not be let out for a single day during the previous year. So if you had been occupied the property for the 11 months and you had let out for a single month, then for the throughout period it is considered deemed let out. It cannot come under the self-occupied. Self-occupied ka get pass ka basic condition, it should not be let out for a single day. Then only you will get entry under the 23(2). If it let out for a single day, 23(2) says that no entry under this. Next, it says that the property should not be let out for a day. The property could be vacant, means self-occupant means you are occupying yourself or you are keeping as a vacant, you are not able to occupy due to his unemployment. That could be the fine option, but you should not receive any other benefit out of this. So if that is a fine, the vacant property can be called as a self-occupied, but the let out property for a single day cannot be single day during the previous year, cannot be called as a self-occupied. Next, how many houses can be called as a self-occupied? Earlier it was used to 1, but this is an amendment of this year, the Finance Act 2019. The 2 house property can be called as a self-occupied property. The next, the let out, it's very simple. The property which has been let out during the year is to be called as a let out. Correct. But there could be a case ki I do have in my house, the ground floor is occupied by me and the first floor it been let out. Correct. So it's a mixture of a self-occupied and let out. Correct. So in this case, the income tax says that each unit should be considered as a separate house property for the purpose of income tax. Means the ground floor would be considered as a one house property. Correct. And the first floor would be considered as a one house property. It should be considered as a separate house property. Each residential unit is to be considered as a separate house property for the purpose of income tax. Let out. Next, deemed let out. The house property is let out for the part of the year, remaining period it is a vacant, or for the part of the year it has been let out and the part of the year self-occupied. Self-occupied के door तो आपके लिए बंद हो गए, तो आप क्या बोले जाएंगे? You will be called as, that property is to be called as a now deemed let out. Next, I do have a more than one house property. Then what? If I do have a more than one house more than 2 house properties. Correct. I do have a 3 house property. All has been self-occupied. But the income tax says the maximum 2 property could be called as a self-occupied. So remaining 1 would be called as a deemed let out. Are you clear with it? Why this matters it out to define what is a self-occupied, what is a let out, or what is a deemed let out? Because their computation में थोड़ा change होता था, minute changes there. Correct. That the reason it is important to determine whether the property is self-occupied, whether the house property is let out, or whether it is a deemed let out. So the next, their computation of the income depending upon the type of the house property. So in that the first one is self-occupied property. Do observe it minutely. यहाँ पे जो है particular, that is what we discussed it. The gross annual value less the municipal tax, you will get the net annual value less the standard deduction at the rate of 30%, that an interest on borrowed capital would be allowed as a. So this part is nothing but the gross annual value less the municipal taxes, you will get the now. Correct. Now means standard deduction at the rate of 30% and interest on borrowed capital under section 24A and 24B. You will get income to be taxed under the HP. Correct. This is a normal for you. Now what is a change? If it is in a self-occupied property, then क्या होगा? If it is in a self-occupied property, then the net annual value would be considered as a nil. Correct. No need to calculate the gross annual value, and the municipal taxes won't be allowed as a deduction. Correct. Directly the net annual value is nil. So there is no question of the standard deduction. Directly you will get the deduction only for the interest on a borrowed capital. Correct. But there is an upper limit of the interest on borrowed capital. Correct. What is an upper limit? It is the 30,000 or the 2 lakh. That is the upper limit. Means the actual interest accrued or the limit, whichever is lower, that much would be allowed as a deduction. So if you satisfy the 3 conditions, then you will get deduction of a 2 lakh. Correct. If you won't satisfy the 3 conditions, you will get the deduction of 30,000. So the income from the self-occupied property, either it would be nil or it would be negative, because the the now is nil and only the reduction could be possible from that is interest on borrowed capital. Do please remember this limit of 30,000 and 2 lakh is applicable only for the self-occupied property. This is not applicable for the laid out property and the deemed laid out property. So the deemed laid out property already we had seen in the same way. The GAV is a step 3 answer. All the remaining steps are common. Please do remember there is no limit for the interest deduction. What is about the deemed let out property? In case of the deemed let out property, there could not be an actual rent. So the step 2 answer would become a GAV. That is, your reasonable expected rent would become a GAV. Next, the municipal taxes would be allowed as deduction as normal. Standard deduction would be available. Interest on borrowed capital would be also allowed as deduction. There is no limit for the interest on borrowed capital. The limit is only for the self-occupied property. Now, the next question in your mind could be, when you will get a 30,000 deduction and when you will get a 2 lakh as a deduction. Before that, we will do one question that is related to the let out property. Okay, so there are two houses. Illustration 12. The Rajesh owns the two houses property H1 and H2. Both are situated at a different places. It is one is at a Gaya and one at the Mumbai. What calculate? They had asked you to compute the income from the HP. So income from the HP means you need to calculate first the GAV, then less the municipal taxes, you will get the now. After that, what you need to do it out? Correct. The standard deduction at the rate of 30%, then interest on borrowed capital would be allowed as a deduction. Then you will get the income to be taxed under the HP. There are two house property. So what are the information given? The gross municipal value and the fair rent, standard rent, it would be required for the GAV calculation. There are 3-step calculation under the GAV. Next, there is an unrealized actual rent receivable and there is as well as unrealized rent. Do you remember unrealized rent is allowed as deduction from the actual rent receivable if we satisfy the 3 conditions. So we will assume it out that all the 3 conditions has been satisfied. So the unrealized rent would be allowed as a deduction. The next one is the municipal taxes. Yes, that would be allowed as deduction provided it should be paid by the owner. If it has been paid by the tenant, deduction is not available. Additional information would be given. The fire insurance, no other expenses other than the municipal tax, standard deduction and the interest on borrowed capital would be allowed as deduction. So this fire insurance won't be allowed as a deduction. The next your repair won't be allowed as a deduction. Sorry, this is a repair won't be allowed as deduction. Interest on borrowed capital would be allowed as a deduction. So what is the extra other information? The loan taken is for the construction. Yes. The interest on borrowed capital would be allowed as deduction, but the loan ka purpose should be PC 5R. Correct. So in that the construction come under the PCR 5. So the interest would be allowed as deduction. Even it is unpaid, still deduction would be available. The municipal tax of the H1 is unpaid. If the municipal tax is unpaid, deduction is not available. Means this municipal taxes is not allowed as a deduction. Next, while the that of the H2 is half is paid by the tenant. So how much deduction is available? The paid by the owner is allowed as deduction. So 50% is paid by the tenant. So 50% is paid by the owner. So then only the 50% which is paid by the owner would be allowed as deduction. So out of the 1000, the deduction is of 500 would be allowed. So we'll compute now. So the first you need to calculate the gross annual value for the house one. There are 3-step calculation. I will do it. The gross municipal value or the fair rent, whichever is higher, that is to be compared with what? Yes, standard rent. So 1 lakh is to be compared with the standard rent. How much is the standard rent? Standard rent is a 90,000. So 1 lakh or 90,000, whichever is lower. So how much it can become a GAV? GAV would become a correct. Sorry, reasonable expected rent would become a the answer of the step 1. So the step 1 answer is a 1 lakh. The step 2 answer in a GAV calculation would be 90,000. And the step 3 is the actual rent receivable minus the unrealized rent. It comes to 92,000. That 92,000 is to be compared with the reasonable expected rent of the 90,000. So the step 3 answer would become a 92,000 and your GAV become a 92,000. Less the municipal taxes. The municipal taxes has not been paid. So the deduction won't be available. If the municipal taxes has been paid, then only the deduction could be possible. So it would be nil. Next, the same become your net annual value 92,000. Then you will get the standard deduction of the 30% of the net annual value and the interest on borrowed capital. Interest on borrowed capital, already we had seen that it is for the purpose of construction. So PCR में आता है, unpaid है, still the deduction would be available. So this 10,000 would be allowed as a deduction. So 92,000 का 30%, correct, and the interest of would be allowed as a deduction. So 30% would comes to 27,600. So income under the HP comes to 54,400. Are we clear with it? Next, for the second house again the gross municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent. So the step 1 answer would be 2,10,000. Step 2, that is to be compared with the standard rent. How much is the standard rent? The standard rent is 2 lakh, correct? So whichever is lower, so it comes to 2 lakh. Then step 3, that is to be compared with actual rent receivable minus the unrealized rent. So how much is the actual rent receivable? 1,80,000 and 2,000 is the unrealized rent, correct? So 1,78,000 is to be compared with the 2 lakh, whichever is higher, correct? So it comes to 2 lakh. So gross annual value would become a 2 lakh. Next, the municipal taxes. Half is paid by the owner. The amount which is paid by the owner would be allowed as a deduction. So in this case, only the 500 would be allowed as a deduction. So net annual value would be 1,99,500. Then you will get the standard deduction of the 30%. That comes to 59,850. Interest on borrowed capital, it is not there. So ultimately, the gross annual value would become 1,39,650. Are you clear with it? So that is the income to be taxed under the HP. If the property is let out, it's very simple. Next, under the SOP, SOP is a self-occupied property. We had seen that there is an upper limit for the interest. It could be 30,000 or it could be 2 lakh. When 30,000 and when 2 lakh, correct? And whether it is for individual properties? No. All the SOPs of the 2 house property can be called as SOPs. So दोनों का मिला के वो भी pre plus post interest amount should not exceed 2 lakh or 30,000. 2 lakh कब मिलेगा upper limit? If you satisfy the 3 conditions. So what are the 3 conditions? The first, the loan should be borrowed after the 1st April 1999. Correct? The second condition in that is the loan is borrowed for the purpose of purchase or the construction of the house property. The third condition, the building comes into existence within 5 years from the end of the financial year in which the loan has been taken. Loan taken क्या? उसके end of the financial के 5 साल के अंदर the building should be ready. If you do satisfy all the 3 conditions, then you will get deduction of a 2 lakh as an upper limit. So means the upper limit, why I'm telling upper limit, actual interest of the 2 lakh, whichever is lower, that would be allowed as a deduction. So that is the upper limit of the 2 lakh would be available, including all SOP. मतलब if you do 2 SOP, दोनों SOP का मिला के maximum कितना amount of interest would be allowed as deduction? 2 lakh would be allowed as a deduction. What about if I don't satisfy any of this condition? Then I would be allowed deduction of only 30,000. Are we clear with this? This is for the self-occupied properties. This is nothing is applicable for the let out and deemed let out. So self-occupied property में you will get a 2 lakh deduction. कब मिलेगा? You will get the 2 lakh deductions if you satisfy the 3 conditions. 2 lakh का deduction मिलेगा interest का, that is not a straight away deduction. That is the actual interest or the 2 lakh, whichever is correct, lower. So it is a limit basically. Upper limit of a 2 lakh would be applicable to the SOPs. SOPs क्यों बोल रही हूँ? दोनों SOP को मिला के this limit is correct. This is not per SOP. Per self occupied 2 lakh का limit नहीं है upper limit. सब SOP मिला के upper limit of a 2 lakh. Okay. The next, अगर if you don't satisfy any of this condition, then कितना मिलेगा? 30,000. Next, so it's seen already section 25. If the interest is paid outside India, correct, then TDS is required to be done. If TDS has not been deducted, then that interest won't be allowed as a deduction. Interest paid है या payable है? TDS deduct करना जरूरी. If TDS has not been deducted and paid to the government, then that interest won't be allowed as deduction under section 24B. Okay, that all about talks about the 25. Already we done the question on this part. So we'll do question on the self-occupied. I will do illustration 14 first. Okay. 14. The Sri Jayaraman has a house property used for his residence for the 9 months and the remaining 3 months of the previous year. It was unused. Unused means a vacant. Correct. If it would have been let out, then the property cannot be called as a self-occupied. Correct. When the property can be called as a self-occupied, if it has been not let out for a single day during the previous year, it could be vacant, but it should not be let out. So in this case, it says that 9 months he is occupied and 3 months it was a vacant, unused. That could be the okay. Correct. Means you can claim as a self-occupied. The gross municipal value, the fair and standard rate had been given, but we do know that in the case of the self-occupied property, your NAV is nil. So आपका step 1, step 2, step 3 of the GAV calculation hardly relevant. Correct. Your municipal taxes figure is also not relevant because the deduction is not available because your NAV is nil. Correct. इसमें किसका deduction मिलता है सिर्फ? Interest on borrowed capital, and that interest amount is nothing but the lost under the HP. Correct. So there are different cases had been given to you. So the municipal tax, all the figures, this all is irrelevant for us. This all data is irrelevant. Okay. So what is relevant? All this, there are 7 cases had been given and all are independent. Okay. So the first he had borrowed the 1 lakh at the rate of 12% interest. Their loan has been taken on the 17th of August 1998. Correct. Purpose is a purchase of house property and the amount is unpaid. So the interest would be allowed as a deduction, but the unpaid bhi rahega, still the deduction would be available. That is not an issue with the interest. That is only with the municipal taxes need to be paid. Interest ke liye, when it is unpaid, the deduction is available. Now the question arises, how much is whether the 3 condition has been satisfied or not, because that determine your upper limit. Correct. In the case of the self-occupied property, there is an upper limit of 2 lakh or 30,000. If you do satisfy the 3 condition, you will get upper limit of 2 lakh. If you don't satisfy it, you will get the upper limit of 30,000. That is very simple. So 1 lakh per 12%. So the interest comes to, correct, it comes to 12,000. So if all the conditions satisfy, then you will get 2 lakh. So you don't satisfy the upper limit, because loan has been taken after the before the 1st April 1999. So upper limit kitna milega aapko? You are not satisfying the one of the condition, so you will get upper limit of 30,000. The actual interest is 12,000. So 12,000 or 30,000, whichever is lower, that much is allowed as a deduction. NAV is a nil in all the cases. NAV is nil. So deduction kitna milega under section 24B? You will get 12,000. So income from the HP negative 12,000. In the case of the case 2, what would happen? For the case 2, interest is a 1,20,000. Again, the first condition has not been satisfied. The loan has not been taken after the 1st April 1999. So upper limit kitne ka hoga? 30,000. So 1,20,000 or the 30,000, whichever is lower, that would be allowed as deduction. So maximum, how much amount would be allowed as deduction? 30,000. So the interest on borrowed capital would be allowed at 30,000. The income from the HP would be negative 30,000. Next, in the case of the case 3, what had happened? He had borrowed 5 lakh at the rate of 12%, correct? And the loan has been taken after the 1st April. Okay, it's for the construction of the house, and the construction is completed on 31st of March 2000. So within 5 years. So all the 3 conditions has been satisfied. So 3 conditions satisfied. So actual or the 2 lakh, whichever is lower. How much is the actual? 5 lakh or 12%? It comes to 60,000. So 60,000 or 2 lakh, whichever is lower. So you'll get the interest deduction of the 60,000. So income from the HP negative 60,000. Next, he had borrowed 20 lakh at the rate of 18%. Correct? And that is for the 17th of August 1999. Means after the 1st April, it's for the construction of the house property, and construction is completed. All the 3 conditions has been satisfied. So you will get the upper limit of a 2 lakh. So the 2 lakh or actual, how much is the actual? 3 lakh, 60,000, whichever is lower. So you'll get deduction of a 2 lakh. Correct. So income to be taxed under the HP negative 2 lakhs. There is a loss of the 2 lakh. Next, this loss can be set off with the other income. Next, the 5th wala house, how he had borrowed, fifth wala case, he had borrowed 1,80,000 at the 15% on the 1st of April 1998, means it is a prior to that, correct? And the 10 lakh has been borrowed after the 17th of August, correct? So there is a two loan, one is a before 1st April 1999 and one is after the 1st April 1999, correct? So the loan which is after the 1st April, उसके लिए limit कितना होगा 2 लाख का, and जो पहले वाला है, the loan which has taken prior to the 1st April, for that the limit would be of 30,000. So we'll calculate the interest amount. So 1,80,000 पे 15%, 1,80,000 पे 15% comes to 27,000, correct? And this comes to 10 lakh per 10%, it comes to 1 lakh, correct? So in this case 27,000 is within the 30,000 limit, so that full would be allowed, and 1 plus 27, so how much would be allowed as deduction? 1,27,000, correct? In this case if it is become a 32,000 आता था ये interest, तो max कितना deduction मिलता था? 1,30,000. So this would be restricted to the 30,000 because this loan was prior to the 1st April. Have you got it? 1st April 1999 के पहले का था, तो इस पे का interest maximum कितना deduction could be allowed? Only the 30,000. And the post वाले का, yeah, the post वाले की limit 2 lakh, but the overall limit is a 2 lakh. I won't get 2 lakh plus 30,000. Correct? It would be ultimately it cannot be more than 2 lakh. So in this case it is a 1,27,000. Next there is a loss of this. Sixth वाले house में it is in a 5 lakh, it is in taken as loan at the rate of 12% for the repair. Repair means second condition has not been satisfied. Correct? It should be construction or the purchase. So again the 30,000 limit is applicable. So 50,000. The loan is after the 1st April 1999, but second condition has not been satisfied. So 5 lakh पे 12%, it's 60,000 or 30,000, which upper limit कितने का applicable होगा? 30,000. So maximum 30,000 would be allowed as deduction. So you'll get the loss of the 30,000. Next 7, 1,18,000 at 15%, so that is comes 27,000. Loan कब लिया है? Prior to the 1st April. Further he had borrowed 20 lakh at the 14%. So ये कितना आएगा interest? 2,80,000. Correct ना? Because the loan is taken at the rate of 14%. When the loan has been taken, the date of the loan is 17th of August 1999. So this loan is after the 1st April 1999. So this loan satisfies the conditions because it is for the construction and it has been completed within a 5 years. So this second wala loan satisfies all the 3 conditions. This does not satisfy. So for the first loan, जो 1,80,000 का loan है, for that the 30,000 is limit, and for the second the limit is of 2 lakh. So actual or 2 lakh whichever is lower, actual or 30,000 whichever is lower. So in the first case full 27,000. In second case how much is the 2,80,000? Correct? So 2,80,000 max कितना मिल सकता है? The max could be a 2 lakh ना? Correct? So दोनों का total max, दोनों का total cannot exceed the 2 lakh. So maximum कितना interest का deduction मिलेगा? 2 lakh का. Have you got it? ये 27,000 2 लाख में से यूज हो गया और बचे हुए किस में से यूज कर लूंगी मैं? सेकंड हाउस के लिए. करेक्ट? तो सेकंड हाउस का 2,80,000 और द 1,63,000 विच एवर इज लोअर. करेक्ट? तो 163 plus 27. तो अल्टीमेटली आई विल गेट अ 2 lakh as a deduction. Have you got it? It cannot exceed the 2 lakh. So ultimately loss from the HP is 2 lakh. Have you clear with the last or should I explain it again? I will explain it again. The last one, just one. So the loan 1 which has been prior to that, उसके ऊपर का interest कितना है? 27,000. Interest is 27,000. How much is the upper limit for this? 30,000. So whichever is lower. So the full 27,000 would be allowed. Overall कितना मिलेगा? 2 lakh because the second loan is after the 1st April. Construction है, construction has been completed within a 5 years. So all the conditions satisfy. So for the second loan the limit is of 2 lakh. Correct? But the overall cannot exceeds the 2 lakh. So 2 lakh में से 27 तो first वाले loan ने use कर लिया, तो अभी बचा कितना? Correct? 1,73,000 had been remain. Correct? Correct ना? And दूसरे हाउस का कितना इंटरेस्ट है? 2,80,000. So whichever is lower. 20 lakh के ऊपर 14% means it comes to 2,80,000. So 2,80,000 limit कितना बचा है? 173. Whichever is lower. So I will get 173. So 173 plus 27. So ultimately I will get deduction of only 2 lakh. in the case of case 7. Hopefully you clear with it. Rent-free accommodation had been given. What the employee had done, employee had on a house, he had given to the employer, and the on a rent, correct, and the employer had given the same house to the employee at a free of cost, correct. So basically the employees are getting a rent. So what will be the treatment of that? The basically question is of that. Illustration 15. Miss Anjali owns a house property which is let out to her employer company for a monthly rent of 20,000. Correct. How much is a monthly rent? 20,000 for each of the month. So the actual rent received would be 20,000 multiplied by 12. The company allotted the same house to the Miss Anjali as a rent-free accommodation. The municipal taxes paid is 20,000 and the interest on the borrowed capital is 90,000. Comment the tax treatment under the head of the income. Correct. To whom it had been given on a rent? He is the owner. He had given on a rent to the company. No doubt he is himself staying, but he cannot call as a self-occupied. No, he is occupying the house. But okay, he is occupying the house, agreed 100%, but he should not receive any benefit, है ना? 23 क्या बोलता है? Self-occupied property कब होगी? You should be occupying throughout the year, and you had not let out the property for a single day, but you had let out, so the property cannot be called as a self-occupied. The property is to be called as a let out. Let out property का calculation कैसे होता है? गाँव 3-step calculation. Correct. Step 1, step 2, step 3. But यहाँ पे municipal value, fair and standard rent has not been given. Correct. सिर्फ actual rent दिया है, तो actual rent को ही हम गाँव बोल देंगे. So तो 20,000 multiplied by 12 would become a गाँव. So that comes to 2,40,000. Municipal taxes paid है. Correct. Paid by the owner. Correct. Not told, but we can assume it is paid by the owner. So the net annual value कितना हो जाएगा? 2,20,000. You'll get the two deductions, standard deduction at the rate of 30%. किसका 30%? NAV का. So 2,20,000 का 30%. Correct. And the interest on borrowed capital, even it is unpaid, still the deduction would be available. So if you reduce the two amount, you will get income to be taxed under the HP. This comes to 66,000. So income to be taxed under the HP is 64,000. Basically, this property cannot be called as a self-occupied. This has to be called as a let-out property. Why? Because he is receiving a rent. No doubt she is occupying it, but she is getting a benefit out of the property. Then the property cannot be called as a self-occupied. It is to be called as a let-out property. Are you clear with it? Next. Illustration 16. Now, what had happened in this case? There are 4 houses. Compute the income under the head of the HP. There are how many houses? There are 4 houses under this question. So the house 1, house 2, house 3 and the house 4. The house 1, 2, 3 is a self-occupied. But you do remember only the 2 property can be called as a self-occupied. Correct. Remaining one would become a deemed let out. And the 4 houses used for the business purpose. If the house is used for own business, income cannot be taxed under the HP. That's our section 22 chargeability में does not fits out. तो ये तो HP से out of हो गया. अब बचते 3 हाउस. लेकिन 3 में से सिर्फ 2 houses can be called as a self-occupied. 1 is to be called as a deemed let out. So अभी which 2 houses I should call as self-occupied? There is no thumb rule. So what we need to do in this case, we'll need to take on a combinations. What is mean by the combination? We'll take it out the 2. First what we'll do, we'll have a 3 combination in this case. What is mean by 3 combination? The first will assume the H1 and H2 is self-occupied. Correct. And H3 is a deemed let out. This is the first option available with us. The second option, H2 and the H3 is to be called as a self-occupied and the H1 is to be called as a deemed let out. This is my first option. This is option 1. This is option 2. Correct. What is the option 3? H1, house 1 and H3 is to be called as a self-occupied and H2 is to be called as a deemed let out. I need to do this exercise 3 times. Correct. And then we'll come to know which option is better for us. जिस option में income from the HP lower आएगा, we'll choose out that option because it is an open to you. Whichever house property you want to claim as a self-occupied, you can claim. So what I will claim it out, जहाँ मेरा income कम आएगा, so I will have to pay the less amount of tax. So I will take it out all the 3, correct? And in all the 3 options में से जिस option में the income from HP lowest आएगा, we'll go with that option. Correct. So first I will do without कि H1 और H2 को हम फर्स्ट ऑप्शन में क्या करते हैं, H1 and H2 को हम सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड मान रहे हैं, एंड विच इज टू बी कंसिडर एज अ लेट आउट, H3 इज टू बी कंसिडर एज अ डीम लेट आउट. करेक्ट. सो फर्स्ट ऑप्शन में क्या होगा, H1 एंड H2 क्या है, सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड है, तो इनका तो नेट एनुअल वैल्यू वुड बी नील. करेक्ट. सिर्फ किसका रिडक्शन मिलेगा, इंटरेस्ट का. तो लेट्स जस्ट टेक इट आउट, H1 एंड H2 करेक्ट, बोथ आर सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड. सो इंटरेस्ट का रिडक्शन मिलेगा. जस्ट लुक आउट एट इंटरेस्ट. इंटरेस्ट ऑन लोन कितना है, 40,000 and 1 lakh. करेक्ट. दिस लोन हैज बीन टेकन ऑन 9899. कब लेना चाहिए, द लोन शुड बी आफ्टर द 1st April 1999 के बाद होना चाहिए. करेक्ट. टू गेट एन अपर लिमिट ऑफ 2 lakh. अदरवाइज व्हाट इज एन अपर लिमिट एप्लीकेबल टू यू, 30,000. करेक्ट. दैट इज नॉट पर प्रॉपर्टी. करेक्ट. दोनों प्रॉपर्टी का मिला के कितने का लिमिट होगा, अपर लिमिट 30,000. करेक्ट. If you don't satisfy the three condition, so what is the first condition in that, the loan should be after the 1st April 1999. So they are not satisfying the first condition itself. So for the interest amount is 1,40,000, but the upper limit is only 30,000. So they will get deduction of only 30,000. Have you clear? And the house 3 is to be considered as a deemed let out. Deemed let out का calculation कैसे होगा, normal calculation. Correct. So normal calculation means the reasonable expected rent would become a GAO. So the gross municipal value is how much? The gross municipal value is 7 lakh. That is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So the answer comes to 7 lakh. That is to be compared with what? Standard rent, whichever is lower. So आपका RDR क्या हो गया, reasonable expected rent, it become a 7 lakh. Next, the municipal taxes would be allowed as deduction if it has been paid. म्यूनिसिपल टैक्सेस कितना है, 15% है. किसका 15% होता है, ये म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू का. करेक्ट. तो हाउ मच इज अ म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू, द 7 lakh इज अ म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू, 7 lakh का 15%. तो विल गेट द म्यूनिसिपल टैक्सेस एज एन अ डिडक्शन. सो दैट इज अ 30% ऑफ द म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू कम्स टू 1,05,000. तो नेट एनुअल वैल्यू बिकम अ 5,95,000. Are you clear with it? The municipal taxes assume that has been paid by the owner, the deduction is allowed. Next, you will get the standard deduction at the rate of 30%. 30% of the NAV. Correct? 30% of the NAV comes to 1,78,500. Next, interest on borrowed capital. Whether you should check a 3 conditions? No. That is only for the self-occupied. If the property is a deemed let out or let out, then you need not to check. Whatever the amount of the interest, the full would be allowed as deduction. So full 2,10,000 would be allowed as deduction. So income under the HP would be, the income would be 2,06,500. Correct. And 30,000 is a negative. So ये आपस में set off हो गए. Net income under the option 1 would be how much? Yes, that comes to 1,76,500. 2,06,500 minus the 30,000. Have you clear? We need to go with the 3 options basically. Have you got this? This is one of the important question because there is an amendment to this. Correct. So be careful for this. There are 3 options. Correct. What are the options? एक तो आप कोई भी 2 houses को self occupied करो and the remaining third one is to be called as a deemed let out. अब which house property has to be called as a self occupied? So I would have a maximum benefit. Maximum benefit मतलब क्या? I should be end with the paying a less amount of tax. That could be possible when the income calculated would be the lower. Correct. So I will calculate the income in all the 3 options. Total income. Correct. Total income from the HP. Under whichever the option the income is lower, I will opt for that option. So in that the first one I taken H1 and H2 is self occupied and H3 is a deemed let out. So self occupied property है, interest का maximum deduction upper limit 30,000 आया. So there is a loss under this house property of 30,000 and H3 में there is a profit of 2,06,500. तो ये आपस में set off होके first option में how much is the income to be taxed under the HP? 1,76,500 under the first option. Okay, clear with it? Now the second option. What is the second option is? Second option with us is correct. House 2 and house 3 is self-occupied. Correct. So for house 2 and house 3, what is important? Their now is nil. तो हमको किसका deduction मिलेगा? I will get the deduction of only interest on borrowed capital. So house 2 एंड द हाउस 3. हाउस 2 के ऊपर का इंटरेस्ट कितना है? दैट इज 1 लाख. करेक्ट. एंड हाउस 3 के ऊपर का इंटरेस्ट है 2,10,000. आई नीड टू डिसाइड द अपर लिमिट. Correct. Upper limit can check out the three condition. In that the one is the loan should be after the 1st April 1999. So it does not satisfy. So this 1 लाख का डिडक्शन मिलेगा क्या? नहीं. For this house property only कितने का डिडक्शन मिलेगा? 30,000. Correct. What about this? This is 2,10,000. लेकिन ओवरऑल लिमिट कितना है? 2 लाख का ही. 2 लाख से ज्यादा मिलेगा क्या? सब SOPs मिला के 2 लाख का. So 2 लाख में से 30,000 already had been utilized by the house 2. So house 1 के लिए कितना बचता है अभी? 170 और 2,10,000. करेक्ट. 2 लाख का अपर लिमिट क्यों हुआ? बिकॉज द लोन हैज बीन 16-17. assuming the remaining two condition has been satisfied, so you will get deduction of 2 lakh. That is the upper limit including the both. करेक्ट. सो दिस 30,000 प्लस 170 इसके लिए बचा और इसका एक्चुअल इंटरेस्ट कितना है? 2,10,000. सो विच एवर इज लोअर. करेक्ट. सो अल्टीमेटली इसको 170 का मिलेगा और इसका 30,000. सो ओवरऑल दे विल गेट डिडक्शन ऑफ ओनली 2 लाख. Next, what about the house 1? House 1 has been considered as a deemed let out in the second option. तो अगर house 1 deemed let out होगा तो क्या होगा? We need to calculate the GAV. How to calculate the GAV? 3 steps calculation. The municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So 3 lakh, that is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. So reasonable expected rent is 3 lakh and the reasonable expected rent is nothing but the GAV. So that will come at 3 lakh. The municipal taxes is 15%. ये रिपेयर और ग्राउंड रेंट, लैंड रेवेन्यू, इसका कुछ कंसर्न है? नहीं. नथिंग वुड बी अलाउड एज अ डिडक्शन. तो ये तो इनरिलेवेंट है. म्यूनिसिपल टैक्सेस कितना है? 15%. एज्यूम दैट इज पेड बाय द ओनर. करेक्ट. सो 15% ऑफ द म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू इज हाउ मच? 3 लाख. सो इट कम्स टू 45,000. करेक्ट. तो नेट एनुअल वैल्यू कितना हो गया आपका? सॉरी, 2,55,000. नेक्स्ट विल गेट द स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन एट द रेट ऑफ 30%. Correct. 30% of 2,55,000 comes to 76,500. Correct. Next, आपको और किसका डिडक्शन मिलेगा? Correct. Interest on borrowed capital. Is any limit? No. If it is a deemed let out, there is no limit. Straight away, full amount of interest would be allowed as deduction. This 40,000 would be allowed as deduction. So 255 minus the total of this 2 would be allowed as deduction. So income under the HP would be 1,38,500. Correct. And there is a loss under this property of the 2 lakh. So ultimately 2 lakh and this income. So ultimately there would be loss of, correct, 61,500 का loss आएगा under the second option. Have you got it? There would be loss of 61,500 under the option 2 because H2 and H3 वैसे सेकंड हाउस प्रॉपर्टी वन ऑफ द कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई करती तो अपर लिमिट कितने का मिल जाएगा? 2 लाख का. करेक्ट. सो अंडर द H2 और H3 में देयर विल बी अ लॉस ऑफ 2 लाख सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड प्रॉपर्टीज का. और H1 डीम लेट आउट है, उसमें इनकम कितने का है? 138,500. ये आपस में सेट ऑफ होके अल्टीमेटली देयर विल बी लॉस ऑफ 61,500. सो अंडर द सेकंड ऑप्शन देयर इज अ लॉस ऑफ 61,500. क्लियर विद इट? नाउ द थर्ड ऑप्शन. व्हाट इज द थर्ड ऑप्शन इज? Third option says that which property is to be considered self-occupied? H1 and H3 is to be considered self-occupied. Okay. So उसमें किसका डिडक्शन मिलेगा? Only the interest amount will be allowed as deduction. H1 and H3. Again ये 40,000 है interest. Correct. But the loan is 1st April 1990 के पहले का. So upper limit for this interest would be 30,000. तो overall कितना? लेकिन 2 लाख का. बराबर है. 2 लाख का क्यों मिलेगा? क्योंकि H3 is satisfying all the 3 condition. Correct. The loan has been after the 1st April 1999. So you'll get the 2 lakh limit, but 2 lakh में से 30,000 हाउस 1 ने यूज किया तो हाउस 3 को कितने का बचा? 170 का. 170 और the 2,10,000 which ever is lower. So 1,70,000 और ये 30. तो अल्टीमेटली कितने के इंटरेस्ट का डिडक्शन मिलेगा? 2 लाख. So if the house 1 and house 3 is a self occupied, correct, तो how much interest would allow the deduction? 2 lakh. तो income under the HP is 2 lakh negative. Next, house 2 is to be considered as a deemed let out. So we'll calculate the GAV. How much is the GAV? The municipal value is to be compared with the fair and whichever is higher, and that is to be compared with the standard and whichever is lower. The reasonable expected rent would become a 2 lakh. The 2 lakh is considered as a GAV. Less the municipal taxes paid 15%. किसका municipal value का? Municipal value is correct 2 lakh. 2 lakh का 15% comes to 30,000. So नेट एनुअल वैल्यू कितना हो गया आपका? 1,70,000. Standard deduction would be available at the rate of 30%. So इसका 30% मतलब 51,000. Next, loan on borrowed capital 1 lakh. लोन 1 अप्रैल 1990 के पहले का है, इससे फर्क पड़ेगा? नो, स्ट्रेट वे द फुल अमाउंट ऑफ 1 लाख वुड बी अलाउड एज डिडक्शन. 1,70,000 में से डू रिड्यूस इट 1,50,000, 51,000. So how much it comes to? It comes to 19,000 as an income under the deemed let out property. Correct. So deemed let out property में the income is of 19,000 and self occupied property में there is loss of 2 lakh. So ultimately there is a loss of 1,81,000 under this option. So option 3 में there is a loss of 1,81,000. Now you do tell me out which option is more better now. Under the first option there is an income, so that option is not better. Under the second option there is a loss, correct? But under the third option the loss is more, loss is of 1,81,000, correct? So which option is better? The option 3 is better. You should claim it out H1 and H3 as a self-occupied and H2 as a deemed let out. Have you clear? This would be a lengthy one, but this would carry the 8 marks and this is most expected to ask in exams. Illustration 17. Miss Sparrow has a house property having 2 separate residential units. Unit A covering 40% of the total area and Unit T2B with 60% of the total area. Correct. A के house property के 2 parts है, Unit A and Unit B. The Unit A covers the 40% and Unit B covers the 60%. Unit A is self-occupied. For the self-occupied property we do know that the gross annual value municipal taxes भूल जाओ, directly net annual value is nil and you will get deduction only for the interest on that portion. Next, the property B has been let out to the Sri Devas on the monthly rent of the 3,000. Correct. तो property B क्या हुई है? Let out हुई और rental कितना मिल रहा है? 3,000 मिल रहा है. So when the one portion of the property has been self-occupied and another is let out, we do consider both the unit as a separate house property under the income tax. Correct. So the A would be considered as a unit A is a self-occupied and the unit B would be considered as a let out property. So for the unit A, what is relevant? Correct. Unit A का area कितना है? 40% है और unit B का area कितना है? 60% है. Correct. So for unit A, the net annual value is nil. Correct. Standard deduction is nil. सिर्फ interest का deduction मिलेगा. Interest on loan कितना है? 30,000 है. बराबर. But ये loan किसके लिए रहेगा? पूरी प्रॉपर्टी के लिए रहेगा ना, मतलब फॉर द यूनिट ए और यूनिट बी दोनों के लिए रहेगा. इसमें से यूनिट ए का पोर्शन कितना होगा? 40%. सो 30,000 का 40%, सो इट कम्स टू 12,000. करेक्ट. सो अपर लिमिट कुछ कंडीशंस वगैरह तो यहाँ पता नहीं कि लोन कब लिया था एंड ऑल, बट 30,000 का लिमिट तो है ही. सो द इंटरेस्ट का डिडक्शन कितना मिल जाएगा? 12,000. हैव यू गॉट इट? हाउ 12,000? 30,000 का 40%. Because this is loan for the full property. Out of that, unit A का portion कितना है? 40% है. Correct. So unit A का interest कितना होगा? Total interest का 40%. So 12,000. So for the house unit A, there is a loss of 12,000. Clear with it? Now unit B. We need to calculate the gross annual value for the unit B. Please do remember, unit B is only having a total area में से कितना एरिया उसका है? 60%. So ये जो आपके सब कुछ है इसमें इसका ये पोर्शन कितना आएगा? 60%. So the municipal value relevant for the unit B would be 60,000. Fair rent relevant would be 72,000 and the standard rent relevant would be 1,20,000. Have you clear? Because this is for the whole property. I am concerned with the only unit B. क्योंकि यूनिट वे का तो म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू एंड ऑल दैट इज इनरिलेवेंट बिकॉज उसका नेट एनुअल वैल्यू ही नील होता है. करेक्ट. सो आई एम रिलेवेंट ओनली विद द 60% पोर्शन. सो आई नीड टू टेक इट आउट द म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू, फेयर रेंट एंड स्टैंडर्ड रेंट all at a 60% because this has been given for the full property. I am relevant only for the unit B. So now to apply the step 1, whichever is a higher, so 72,000 is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower, so reasonable expected rent would become a 72,000. That is to be compared with the actual rent now. Correct. So how much is the actual rent? The unit B has been let out for the 3,000 per month. Correct. So 3,000 multiplied by 12. So it comes to 36,000. Correct. So 72,000 is to be compared with the reasonable expected rent. कितना है? 72,000. That is to be compared with the 36,000, whichever is higher. So GAO become a 72,000. Correct. Next, the municipal taxes. Assume it has been paid by the owner. Correct. Then only the deduction note में लिखना जरूरी है कि it has been paid. करेक्ट, 10% ऑफ द म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू. विच म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू? ऑब्वियसली 60,000. पूरे का डिडक्शन मिलेगा क्या? नहीं, लेट आउट पोर्शन का ही डिडक्शन मिलेगा ना, सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड का तो डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा. तो लेट आउट पोर्शन का म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू कितना है? 60,000. तो उसका 10%, सो इट कम्स टू 6,000. हाउ यू क्लियर? सो इट कम्स टू 66,000. Next, you will get the standard deduction under section 24A at the rate of 30%. How much is that? 66,000 का 30%. तो ये amount कितना आएगा? How much will be the amount of that? 19,800. Next, the interest on borrowed capital. 30,000 का कितना percent? 60%. There is no restriction, there is no limit. Correct? Actual amount of the interest would be allowed in the case of the laid out property. So the total deduction comes to 37,800. 66,000 minus this. So income under this unit B is 28,200. Under the self occupied there is a loss. ये आपस में set off हो जाएगा. तो ultimately the income from the HP is 16,200. Have you clear? What is the most important under this? यूनिट बी में म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू, स्टैंडर्ड रेंट एंड फेयर रेंट कितना परसेंटेज लेना होगा? 60%. म्यूनिसिपल टैक्स का भी 60%. करेक्ट, म्यूनिसिपल टैक्स, टोटल म्यूनिसिपल टैक्स का 60%. इंटरेस्ट ऑन बोरोड कैपिटल भी कितना लेना होगा? 60%. ऑल द फिगर्स टू बी टेकन एज अ 60%. क्लियर विथ इट? नेक्स्ट, इलुस्ट्रेशन 18. What is this illustration? Mr. Rana used in-house property for the self-occupation up to the 1st August. April, May, June, July. For the 4th month, he had been self-occupied. After that, it has been let out for the remaining period as 6,000 per month. Matlab, out of the 12 months, the 8th month the property was self-occupied and 8th month is a let out. Do you remember I told you that even it is let out for a single day, then the property cannot be called as a self-occupied. Property क्या हो जाएगी? It would be considered as a deemed let out property. So it would be considered as a deemed let out. Next, compute his income from the HP from the following details. The municipal value, fair and standard rent has been given. The municipal tax is 16% and the interest on borrowed capital is 10,000. Correct. So how much is the municipal value? The municipal value is 1 lakh. Correct. The fair rent is 80,000. The standard rent is 96,000. तो रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट कितना हो जाएगा? डीम लेट आउट में नॉर्मल प्रोसीजर ना, हम पहले क्या कैलकुलेट करेंगे? म्यूनिसिपल टैक्सेस पेड का डिडक्शन लेंगे, देन स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन, देन इंटरेस्ट ऑन बोरोड कैपिटल विदाउट एनी लिमिट एंड विल गेट इनकम टू बी टैक्स्ड अंडर द एचपी. सो रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट कितना हो जाएगा यहाँ पे? विच एवर इज हायर, 1 लाख और 80,000. तो 1 lakh and that is to be compared with the standard rent of the 96,000, whichever is lower. So reasonable expected rent would be 96,000. Actual rent receivable कितना आएगा? How much is the rent? 6,000 per month. That is for the 8 months. The property is let out only for the 8 months. So it is a 48,000. So gross annual value whichever is higher, so it would become a 96,000. Have you clear with it? Next, the municipal taxes. Assuming that the municipal taxes has been paid, 16% किसका रहेगा? ये म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू का. करेक्ट. तो म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू इज 1 लाख, तो 1 लाख का 16%, तो इट कम्स टू 16,000. सो आपका नेट एनुअल वैल्यू कितना हो जाएगा? करेक्ट. 80,600 इज योर नेट एनुअल वैल्यू. It is 96,000 only. 96,600. Sorry. So 96,000 minus 16,000. So it comes to 80,000. Next, you will get a standard deduction at the rate of 30%. किसका 30%? NAV का. So 80,000 का 30%. 24,000. And interest on borrowed capital, even it is unpaid, deduction is available without any limit. Let out में कोई limit applicable नहीं. Only the self-occupied में there is an upper limit of 30,000 or 2 lakh. So the deduction of 34,000 would be allowed to you. So income from the HP would be how much? Yes, 46,000 would be the income to be taxed under the HP. What is the crux under this? This is not to be called as a self-occupied. This is to be called as a deemed let out. And deemed let out हुआ तो simple procedure. What are the amount of interest would be allowed as deduction? Municipal taxes में सिर्फ एक note लिखना है. If it has been paid, then only the deduction is available. Correct. गाँव की calculation में normal 3-step calculation is there. Correct. Otherwise it's simple. Actual rent you will get only for the 8 months. Clear with it? Chalo, the next illustration. Illustration 19. Mr. Rana used his house property to let out to tenants from the 1st April to the 1st December. Correct. From the 1st December, it was self-occupied. Vice versa हुआ. for the 1st April to 1st December, means April, May, June, July, August, September, October has been let out for the 8 months and self-occupied for the remaining month. The standard rent has been given 50,000. The rent for the rent of rupees 6,000 per month, it has been let out the property for the rent of the 6,000 per month. That for 8 months it has been let out. Computed income from the HP from the following details. The municipal value is 1 lakh. The fair rent is 80,000. Standard rent ऊपर दिया है 50,000. Correct. The municipal tax is 16% and interest on borrowed capital is 10,000. It is actually similar to what we had done. So we'll be little bit fast. How much is the municipal value in this case? The municipal value is 1 lakh. The fair rent of the property is how much? 80,000 and the standard rent is 50,000. Correct. Reasonable expected rent, whichever is higher. Correct. 1 lakh or 80,000, step 1 lakh, and that is to be compared with the 50,000, whichever is lower. So it comes to reasonable expected rent comes to 50,000. Correct. Now actual rent receivable 6,000 per month that you will be receiving for the 8 months. So 6,000 multiplied by 8, so it comes to 48,000. So what it become a gav? Again the gav had become a 50,000. Whichever is higher would become a gav. Next, municipal taxes is a 16% of the municipal value. How much is your municipal value? 1 lakh. So you will get deduction of 16,000. The property is let out from the 1st April to 1st December. Means it is let out for the 8 months. It's correct. Correct. But it is self-occupied from the 1st December to the 1st March. Not the 31st March. Means the property is vacant for the month of March. Correct. So there is a vacancy loss of 1 month. Try to understand this point. There is a vacancy loss of 1 month. So जब भी ARER और ARR में झगड़ा होता है, do you remember the vacancy loss concept? Correct. So AR is lower and the reasonable expected rent higher है. How much is the reasonable expected rent? The reasonable expected rent is 50,000 and your actual rent is 48,000. Correct. So whoever is higher would become a gav. तो कौन गाँव बनेगा? RDR. That is your reasonable expected. लेकिन there is a vacancy loss. Yes. Correct. तो vacancy loss add back करके देखेंगे. How much is the vacancy loss? Vacancy loss only for the 1 month. So I will add back the vacancy loss. तो कितना आता था rent? 48,000 plus 6,000. It comes to correct 54,000. Correct. अगर vacancy add किया होता तो I would be higher than the reasonable expected rent. What is higher than the reasonable expected rent? Actual rent. Correct. Do you remember what is in a concept? Ki if the reasonable, whoever is higher should become a gav. But what is in a condition? If the AR would come with the fight, if the vacancy loss add karo, agar मैं ज़्यादा होता हूँ, तो would become a gav, the AR would become a gav. So if I add over here the vacancy loss, it is more than, the AR is more than the reasonable expected rent. So would become a gav? The actual rent would become a gav. So what would be the gav? The 48,000 would be the gav. Less the municipal taxes of the 16,000 would be allowed as deduction. So 48,000 minus the 16,000. So net annual value would be 30,000. Correct. Standard deduction is at the rate of 30%. And the interest on borrowed capital, the remaining question is same. There is no limit. 32,000 ka 30%. So it comes to 9,600. So income under the HP is 12,400. This and the last question is similar to explain. What is the change? In the last question there was no vacancy loss, and in this question there is a vacancy loss. Or due to the vacancy loss, the actual rent become a gav. Not the reasonable expected rent had become a gav. That is the only change. Have you clear? Please minutely observe it out. There is a 1 month of vacancy loss in this question. That is the crux of the question. Next, illustration 20. The Miss Rani used an house property for the self-occupation till the 1st September and let out for the remaining period for the rent of that 6,000 per month. The municipal taxes paid is a 5,000 and the interest on the loan is 10,000. Compute the income from the HP. Self-occupation, it is considered a deemed let out, because the property was self-occupied till the 1st September 2019. Correct. And let out for the remaining period. मतलब there is no vacancy loss नहीं है. क्वेश्चन सिमिलर लग रहा है लेकिन थोड़ा माइन्यूट डिफरेंस है. सबसे पहले क्वेश्चन में रिमेनिंग पीरियड के लिए थ्रू आउट लेट आउट था, तो हमने डीम लेट आउट करके इट वाज इजी. सेकंड क्वेश्चन में देयर वाज अ वैकेंसी लॉस ऑफ 1 मंथ. In this question vacancy loss नहीं है, okay, but there is a small thing missing. How to calculate? हम क्या करेंगे, पहले गाँव कैलकुलेट करेंगे, then municipal taxes paid minus, then standard deduction at the rate of 30%, and then interest on borrowed capital. Correct? These are our fixed steps. In the गाँव calculation, what do you want? You need a municipal value, but the municipal value has not been given. Correct? Then fair rent, municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent. Fair rent given है क्या? Is it given? Yes, it is given. How? The 6,000 is a rent for a property na, per month. So that I can take it out in a fair rent. So how much become my fair rent? So 6,000. So 6,000 multiplied by 12 become my fair rent. Correct? So the fair rent become a 72,000. Have you got it? Standard rent not given. Correct? So this become my reasonable expected rent. And that is to be compared with the actual rent. But that is in the crux of the question. In this question, what has not been given? The fair rent has not been given. But if I could let out this property at a 6,000, I can deem a 6,000 as a rent. 6,000 multiplied by 12 क्या करना है? Do you remember I told you that the fair rent, municipal value and standard rent always to be taken as annual until and unless you are owner for the part of the year. तो यहाँ पे you are not owner for the part of the year, you are owner for the full year. Part of the year is self-occupied and a part of the year it is let out. तो हम म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू, स्टैंडर्ड रेंट, फेयर रेंट फॉर पार्ट ऑफ द ईयर लेते हैं क्या? नहीं, वी ऑलवेज टेक इट फॉर द फुल ईयर. So in this case, we'll take the fair rent as a 72,000. But that is the crux. The remaining is very simple. Reasonable expected rent 72,000. That actual rent 6,000 multiplied by the property is let out only for the let out from the 1st September. So September, October, November, December, January, February, and March. So it has been let out for the 7 month. 42,000. So the gross annual value become a 42,000. Have you got it? The municipal taxes how much? They had already told 5,000. That would be allowed as deduction. So 37,000 is a net annual value. You will get standard deduction at the rate of 30% of the 37,000, and interest on borrowed capital would be allowed at a 10,000. So 20,100 and 10,000. So income to be taxed under the HP is 36,900. Remaining is all very simple. Correct? So simply आपको 5,000, 20,000 and that 10,000. You need to reduce 20,100 and 10,000 need to be reduced from the NAV. The main crux was fair rent. हमको लगेगा fair rent दिया ही नहीं है. नहीं, it is hiddenly given. और fair rent हमेशा annual figure लिया जाता है. Fair rent, municipal value and standard rent. Always we take annual value unless and until he is owner for the part of the year. Clear with it? Similar as small changes are there. Next, question number 21. Mr. Ajnabi has a house property in a Cochin. House property has a 2 equal dimensions. As house property have 2 units, unit 1 and unit 2, equal dimension, मतलब दोनों 50-50 है. A is self-occupied throughout the year. हमने एक 40-60 वाला देखा था, kind of that. And the unit 2 is let out for the 9 months for the rupees 10,000 3 months, and remaining 3 months it was self-occupied. But vacant नहीं है. Vacancy loss है क्या? नहीं. Self-occupied है. Correct. So okay, it would be considered as a deemed let out. Compute is taxable income from the following detail. This municipal value would be given for whole property. इसमें से जो सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड है यूनिट 1 थ्रू आउट द ईयर, उसके रिलेटेड का पोर्शन तो यूजफुल ही नहीं है. क्यों? बिकॉज फॉर द सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड प्रॉपर्टी वी टेक इट आउट द net annual value as a nil, so that won't be relevant for me. So the unit 1 के लिए the net annual value is nil. Correct? So I will get a deduction for only for the interest. Correct? The interest on loan is 40,000. बराबर है. So दोनों में 50% जाएगा तो 20,000. So even the condition has not been given. Condition के बारे में कुछ दिया नहीं, फिर भी upper limit of 30,000 तो मिल ही जाएगा. So 20,000 का पूरा deduction मिलेगा. तो unit 1 में there would be a loss of 20,000. Now come out to unit 2. We need to calculate the gross annual value. So we'll have to 3-step calculation. But do remember this municipal value and this is for whole property. तो इसमें से unit 2 का portion कितना है? 1 lakh of the municipal value. Fair rent कितना आएगा? 80,000. And the standard rent comes to 1,50,000. Correct? So 1 by 1, the gross annual value 1 lakh or 80,000, whichever is higher, that is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. Correct? So 1 lakh and 1,50,000. So ultimately reasonable expected rent कितना हो जाता है आपका? It comes to द रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट कम्स टू 1 लाख. एक्चुअल रेंट कितना आएगा? द प्रॉपर्टी इज लेटेड ओनली फॉर द 9 months, so 10,000 multiplied by 9, but there is no vacancy loss, correct? So actual rent 90,000, both is to be compared, so gross annual value become a 1 lakh. The municipal taxes 10%. किसका? म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू. बट विच म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू? 2 लाख नहीं रिलेवेंट है. हम यूनिट 2 का कैलकुलेशन करें तो यूनिट 2 का म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू कितना है? 1 लाख. सो 1 लाख का 10%, करेक्ट? सो 1 लाख का 10% कम्स टू 10,000, बट 60% इज पेड बाय द असेसी. तो जितना असेसी ने पे किया दैट मच इज ओनली अलाउड एज डिडक्शन. सो द 6,000 वुड बी अलाउड एज अ डिडक्शन फॉर द म्यूनिसिपल टैक्सेस. नेक्स्ट आपका नेट एनुअल वैल्यू कितना हो जाएगा? 94,000. देन यू विल गेट द स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन. हाउ मच इज द स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन? 30%. 94,000 का 30%, it comes to 28,200. 28,200. इंटरेस्ट ऑन बोरोड कैपिटल टोटल इज 40,000 ना, दोनों में 50-50 आएगा तो 20,000. वन मोर फिगर हैज बीन अवेलेबल, दैट इज रिपेयर ऑफ 30,000. रिपेयर का डिडक्शन मिलता है क्या? नहीं. स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन दिया ना, अभी रिपेयर भूल जाओ, रिपेयर इंश्योरेंस सब भूल जाओ, करेक्ट? तो रिपेयर का डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा, इंटरेस्ट का मिलेगा. So it comes to 48,200. So 94,000 minus 48,200. So income to be taxed under the HP is 45,800. Are you clear with it? Next, there are certain small sections that is pending with the HP. That is a section 25A that talks about the recovery of the unrealized rent and the arrears of rent. Correct? Next, section 26 that talks about the co-owner concept, and the last one is a composite rate. There are the three things need to be discussed under the HP. So under that, the recovery of the unrealized rent. What is mean by the recovery of the unrealized rent or the arrears of rent? For an example, there was an unrealized rent, you have taken a deduction also in the previous year, preceding previous year. That you had recovered the amount. Now that should be taxable. Yeah, that would be taxable, but you'll get the 30% deduction, the 70% would be taxable. The same treatment is applicable for the arrears of rent. What is mean by arrears of rent? Generally, if you let out the property to the government, they मैंने municipal corporation को let out किया property, correct, at the rent of a 5,000. Every year the rent is to be increased by 10%, बराबर है, and the rent agreement is to be changed, but they had not done that. Correct. After the 3 years, after the too much of follow-up, they had done agreed with that, and that retrospective amendment from the last 2 years. So I will get the arrears of rent of ₹1,000, assuming 1,000 per month for the last 2 years as well. मतलब मेरे को पिछले दोनों साल के लिए भी arrears मिलेगा, तो that would be taxable in the year in which it is received. And उसमें से 30% would be allowed as standard deduction, and the remaining would be taxable. Even मैंने वो house property बेच भी दी होगी. Correct? I'm not the owner of the house property at the time of the realizing of unrealized rent or the arrears of rent. Still, that is to be taxable under the HP. Next, co-owner. If I am the I'm 40% owner and my spouse is a 60% owner of the house property, तो क्या होगा? हाँ, all the municipal value standard rent is to be divided between us at a 60-40. Correct? All the things is to be divided 60-40. इंटरेस्ट ऑन बोरोड कैपिटल, हाँ, जितना मैंने इंटरेस्ट ऑन बोरोड कैपिटल हमारा कॉमन है, उसमें भी टोटल इंटरेस्ट पोर्शन विल बी डिवाइडेड इनटू द 60-40 रेशियो बिटवीन द टू असेसी, बिटवीन द को ओनर्स. करेक्ट? बट द क्वेश्चन अराइजेस वेदर यू विल गेट द लिमिट ऑफ 2 lakh individually, yes, or the 30,000, yes. For the self-occupied property, the limit of 2 lakh or the 30,000 is individually. Means my both the co-owner would get a 2 lakh limit, or both the co-owner would get a 30,000 limit, at depending upon the condition. So both the co-owner will get a separate limit of 2 lakh, not the combined limit of 2 lakh. That is the most important point. Each owner would be treated as an individual for the limit of 30,000 or 2 lakh. That is the most important point. Next, composite rent. The rent is not only for the building, it is also for the furniture. Correct? Composite rent है, तो सबसे best way to treat it out. The HP में क्या टैक्स होता है? सिर्फ बिल्डिंग का. तो आप फर्नीचर का रेंट कहाँ टैक्स करो? यू टैक्स अंडर द IOS और द BGBB. करेक्ट? सिग्रीगेट करना पॉसिबल है तो, बट इफ यू कैन नॉट सिग्रीगेट द रेंट, करेक्ट, then full composite rent would be taxable under the IOS or the PGBB. It cannot be taxed under the HP. HP में सिर्फ बिल्डिंग का टैक्स होता है. बिल्डिंग के साथ में अगर फर्नीचर या अदर फैसिलिटीज का रेंट दे आर चार्जिंग, तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू शुड सेग्रीगेट, बट सेग्रीगेशन इज नॉट पॉसिबल. द फुल अमाउंट इज taxable under the PGBP or IOS. It cannot be taxed under the HP. There are the small things. There is a question on this part. Mr. Lucky Ali owns a house property let out since 1st April 2015 to a school for a monthly rent of 10,000. There was no change in the rent till 31st of March 2019. On the 1st of April 2019, as per the court decision, the rent has increased to 12,000 per month with retrospective effect from the 1st April 2017. Rent कब से change हो रहा है? 1st April 2017 से. You are under the 1st April 2019, तो आपको रिवाइज रेंट मिलेगा 2000 रेंट बढ़ के मिलेगा, इंक्रीज रेंट बाय 2000 पर मंथ, एंड दैट इज फॉर 2 years. Correct. So the legal expenditure for the said suit has been incurred by Mr. Ali of 30,000. Discuss the tax treatment under section 25A. That is nothing but the arrears of rent. How much is the arrears of rent that you are receiving? You are receiving the arrears of rent 2000 per month. Correct. That is for the 2 years. So per year कितना हो जाएगा? 24,000, and that is you are getting for the 2 months. So you are receiving the arrears of 48,000. Correct. Out of this 48,000 क्या होगा? Whether you will get a deduction for the legal expenses? No. Do remember under the HP, no expenses are allowed as deduction except the standard deduction of 30%. Correct. तो इसके against कितना deduction मिलेगा? 30%, and the remaining 70% is to be taxable under the HP even you are not the owner. So 30% minus करके कितना taxable होगा? 33,600 would be taxable. Have you clear? 30% minus करके 30% comes to 14,400, and the remaining would be taxable. Have you clear? Even you are not the owner, this is to be taxable. Arrears of the rent is to be taxable in the year of receipt. So it would be taxable in the year 1920. 17-18 में जाके 18-19 में जाके taxable नहीं होगा. When it would be taxable? It would be taxable in the year of receipt, that is 1920, or you will get only the standard deduction. No other expenses would be allowed as deduction. The 70% of the arrears would be taxable under the HP. The last illustration under this. H Limited has in a 2-house property, both of which are vacant. Okay, not occupied by them and not let out. The municipal value of the first house property is 1 lakh and that of the second is 80,000. It has computed income as follow. Is it correct? Here treated a house property 1 as a self-occupied and house property 2 as a deemed let out, and gross annual value is taken as a municipal value for that. And he had taken a standard deduction. Municipal taxes paid nahi hai kuch bhi. So he had taken a nil and he had computed the income from the HP. Just look out at a question. Is it correct? He has a 2-house property. Correct. तो एक उसने self occupied, vacant को self occupied claim किया जा सकता है. And second, he had considered the deemed let out. Whether the treatment given by him is correct, or can he treat both of the property as a self occupied? Can he treat both the property as a self occupied? No. It's an X limited. This self-occupied property benefit is only available to the individual and HUF. This cannot be available to the company and the firms. Correct. So this treatment is wrong. What he should have done? Both the properties to be considered as a deemed let out. Correct. And the यहाँ पे कितना annual value आता था? 1 lakh the municipal value. So the income would be 1,56,000. Are we clear with it? The individual and HUF only can claim the property as a self-occupied. The company and the firm cannot claim the SOP as any property as a self-occupied. Clear with it? The last point is pending with this is a deemed ownership concept. What is a deemed ownership concept? Try to understand. The individual has transferred property to his spouse without a consideration. Correct? Why the people do such way? Because for an example. So now what had happened? The house property has been transferred to the spouse without a consideration. Why? Because the spouse is having a lower income, so he come under the lower slab. Government authorities के records में देखो, the spouse is the owner. Correct? But this is to tax evasion purpose. Correct? So the individual who has transferred the property to the spouse without a consideration is to be considered as a deemed owner. Transferee is a owner in the government records, but the transferor is considered as a deemed owner under section 27. So it is taxable. The rental income or the gross annual value of the property is taxable in the hands of that individual, in the hands of transferor. So just I will explain one of that. The remaining you do at a home. So who is a transferor? The husband is a transferor. Transferee is a wife. The receiving is the wife. Who is a deemed owner? Actual owner is a transferee. Wife is the owner. But who is to be considered a deemed owner? The deemed owner would be considered as a husband. The same is applicable for the minor child. If the father has transferred the property to the minor child, correct? Transferee is a minor child, but income किस owner कौन माना जाएगा? The father would be considered as a deemed owner. Same with the mother. If the mother has transferred to the minor child, then transferee is a minor child, but the mother would be considered as deemed owner. But this won't be applicable if it has been transferred to the minor married daughters. correct? अगर minor married daughter को transfer किया तो the transferee would be considered as a owner, not the transferor. So just go through with this slide, and with this we'd finish with the HP. Just have a revision in 5 minutes. What are the things we had seen under the HP? So the section 22 we had started with, that talks about the chargeability. Correct? After the chargeability section, section 23 defines it out ki how to whether the house property is self-occupied, let out, or the deemed let out. Correct? Self-occupied का simple rule that is applicable only to the individual HR and should not be let out for a single day. Vacant भी रहेगा तो चलेगा, but let out नहीं होना. That is a self-occupied. Let out, deemed let out. It's very simple to understand. Then computation of the income. Computation of income में यहाँ अभी तो रट्टा हो गया. Gross annual value less municipal taxes paid, you will get the now net annual value. You will get the two deduction under section 24. Correct. That is 24A and 24B, standard deduction at the rate of 30% and interest on borrowed capital. Correct. And then you will get income to be taxed under the HP. Interest ke liye there is a limit if this property is self-occupied. Upper limit of 30,000 or 2 lakh depending upon whether you satisfy the condition or not. This is all about the 22, 23 and 24 में deductions. 25 talks about what? Interest is paid outside India without deduction of TDS. It won't be allowed as deduction. 25A, yes, 25A क्या बोलता है? That arrears of rent or the unrealized rent, 25A. Next, 26 co-owner. Each owner would be considered as separate for the limit of 30,000 and 2 lakh. And 27 talks about the deemed owner. That's all about the HP. In between, we had seen the vacancy loss, unrealized rent treatments, correct? And one more thing, कब part of the year के लिए लेना होता है fair and standard rent, correct? So with that, we finish with the HP. Thank you.